All right, guys, welcome back to Everything College Bowl podcast. Today, me and Nick are our preview and prediction for the Frisco Bowl between Memphis and West Virginia. Tuesday, December 17th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. 56.5 is the total. Tigers are 3-point favorites live from Toyota Stadium in Frisco, Texas. Getting things started with the Memphis offense against the Mountaineers defense. You know, this is a group that gives up over 31 points per game against an offense that's putting up over 35 points per contest with tremendous balance. You have a veteran quarterback in Seth Hennigan, 3,200 yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 picks this year. You know, their last game against Tulane, an upset victory on the road against the Green Wave. He was a great field general there, showcased great command of this offense. And this is a veteran quarterback at the end of the day from the area in Denton, Texas. So this is a guy going to be playing in front of his, a lot of friends, a lot of family. Pressure will be on a little bit. Of course, he has a phenomenal group led by Rock Taylor, Demir Blasquemy, Kobe Drake. Those are three guys that are pretty much 500-yard receivers. And then Mario Anderson's an elite running back. 1,292 yards and 17 touchdowns rushing. The thing for West Virginia is they just cannot stop allowing big plays through the air this year. 132nd and 40-plus yard pass plays allowed. 125th total ranked pass defense. They've only snagged 5 interceptions. It's a respectable run defense led by an elite defender in TJ Jackson. One of their top linebackers in Josiah Trotter's in the portal. Is he going to play? We're not sure. In today's day and age, you're not sure if those guys will end up transferring or not. But nonetheless, Nick, this team certainly has a lot of problems on this side of the ball that probably is not going to fare very well against a very explosive, balanced offense here, because they're destined to get slashed through the air, and then they have to manage Anderson on the ground, who's a very good runner. It's going to be a tough night for the Mountaineers.
Certainly a tough matchup for West Virginia in this one. Hennigan is a good quarterback, 65% comp rate, 3,200 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, 6 picks. Good numbers there. Confident in what he can do. He's a really good athlete for this team. Really solid quarterback. Rock Taylor is a great top receiver for this team. Kobe Drake is solid as well. I think, Blankenship is solid as well. 5 receiving touchdowns for him. Some good pieces there. The tight end is really solid as well. Landafear, he's a good player. 379 and 4 scores for him. Mario Anderson, nearly 1,300 yards rushing, about 6 yards per carry, and 17 scores, over 100 yards per game. Really impressive numbers for him. He's really dominant on the ground. A really good slasher. Like what he can do. This West Virginia run defense has shown some strengths at time this season, which I think is something that is certainly nice if you're a West Virginia fan. 141 yards per game given up on the ground, about 4.1 yards per carry. A decent enough unit at times. If Trotter plays, that's a big boost. 92 total tackles for him. Not sure if he will. Trey Latham, his partner at linebacker, has been really good. 72 total tackles, 8 tackles for loss. TJ Jackson's a really good run stopper. 38 total tackles, 14 tackles for loss for him. 6.5 sacks. Good numbers there. He's really your only big pass rush threat. Sean Martin's been solid at times as well, with 5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. Decent against the run, those two together. Can this defense stand up against the run? I think it's possible. Certainly Memphis can hit this team over the air, and I think this secondary does worry me a little bit. Overall, though, there are some decent bright spots on this defense, but you have to give Memphis the advantage on offense. I think this game's going to be a shootout, and it's really going to be whichever team seems to get the ball last probably will win this game. I'm expecting a nice high-scoring affair here.
For WVU, Dantes Fagan's been a pretty good corner, but their top guy, Garnett Hollis, has been abysmal for them in coverage, so that's certainly not great. You'll get 2 guys on the offensive line, tackles Chris Adams at left, and then on the right side, Xavier Hill. It's a phenomenal duo there that should probably keep Jackson in check. And then Trent Hollier at center is a nice veteran player there, so it seems like there's an overwhelming edge for the Memphis offense. You move to the West Virginia offense. This is a group that drastically disappointed. That's the best way to put it, and it led to the firing of Neil Brown. Garrett Green, he regressed. He was not good at all. His completion percentage went up 5 points to 58%. He had 13 touchdowns and 11 picks. Those are completely different in the opposite directions compared to last year. Still ran for 638 and 5 touchdowns. That's also down from last year. He did play only 10 games in the regular season due to some injuries. Nonetheless, though, this was an offense that just drastically disappointed. The production through the air wasn't all that good. Hudson Clement, Traylon Ray, and then a good tight end, Nicole Taylor. Give them a variety of different options here. You're going up against a defense that has been good for the most part. Against the pass, they haven't been good. But this is a team that plays in a lot of shootouts, a lot of high-scoring games. They can certainly inflate those numbers a little bit. Pretty good against the run, 10th nationally in that regard. They've allowed 18 touchdowns, while West Virginia has a great 1-2 punch in C.J. Donaldson and Jaheim White. Of course, you throw Green into the mix. 192 yards rushing for WVU. This offense just seems to go quiet at times, and they're just not always that efficient on the ground. You've seen that throughout the year, where the ground attack was not as good as it was last year, where they were just dominating opponents, annihilating them on a weekly basis. They only hit 300 yards twice this year. Once was against an FCS team. The other was against Oklahoma State. It was probably the nation's worst defense. So this is probably not going to be a matchup that they annihilate for, by any means, Nick. This is a good Memphis defense. 9th in takeaways, held Mekhi Hughes and Tulane in check a couple weeks ago. 58th nationally in sacks, and then Chandler Martin's a great player for them off the edge, just like Jackson is for the Mountaineers. This team is good, Nick. Elijah Herring at linebacker, he's a veteran player. Looks like all these guys are playing. A lot of seniors in that front seven. I think they're probably going to win this matchup as well, but this is an explosive offense that has a lot of variety to it, and in bowl games, they're going to take some more risks, I would imagine. All the trick plays might be coming out of the bag, and that might hurt Memphis downfield.
I can certainly see WVU taking some more options and rolling the dice a little bit here. They're going to be head coached by Chad Scott, the offensive coordinator who stepped up to be interim head coach following Neil Brown's firing, as they're bringing in Rich Rodriguez, running it back to 2007, bringing back the old gang. I think that's a good hire for WVU, but obviously time will tell on that. Scott's going to get to go in the bowl game. He's going to coach this team. He's been with the program since 2019 in various offensive roles as co-OC, running backs coach, various different roles. He's been a career assistant since 2006 at various programs across the country, giving himself an opportunity to go get one win in his career before he moves on to probably being an offensive assistant of some sort under Rich Rodriguez's new look team in the future. Garrett Green certainly disappointed, improved the completion percentage, but below 2,000 yards passing, 13 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, just not good enough from him. You wanted to see more out of Green this year. I think he was still a decent runner, but did not have enough production at all on the ground compared to what this offense was expecting. And in general, this is an offense that we expected a lot more on the ground that we just did not get out of them this year, which was certainly disappointing when they lost a lot of the games they did. They were averaging about 200 yards per game on the ground and through the air, a little bit below that in rushing. But, that's not high enough. They were hoping to get above 200 yards rushing, and certainly were hoping to get significantly more than 200 yards per game through the air. They struggled to find that positive balance. Jaheim White's been good. C.J. Donaldson's been a bit disappointing at times. White, 817, 7 scores, while Donaldson has 651 and 9 scores. Green is additional 5. The wide receiving room has been banged up a little bit this year. Some decent players. Cole Taylor, the tight end's a solid piece for this team, 404 for him and 3 scores. Talon Ray, 426, 15.2 yards to grab and 4 scores for him. A decent player. I expect them to have solid days if they're playing in this game. This WVU team is certainly being shaken up by the firing of Neil Brown. A lot of people are questionable to play in this game, so certainly keep your eye on that as things develop. When you look at Memphis, Chandler Martin, a really good linebacker, 94 total tackles, 15 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, 4 pass breakups. Stat sheet suffer leads the way in a lot of categories for this team, while Elijah Herring is a solid partner with 50 total tackles, 8 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. The Memphis defense that's shown a lot of success in getting takeaways, forcing takeaways, and they've been really good against run, giving up about 100 yards per game, 3.8 yards per carry. Can West Virginia find a way to break through that? It's a bowl game, so I think it's certainly possible, and I'm feeling like things get a little crazy down there in Frisco, but that's a really tough matchup, and certainly something that's giving you cold feet if you're a WVU fan.
Chad Scott did say that everyone's playing in the bowl game. I'm not sure what that means for Trotter ultimately, but I do know that means that Wyatt Millam, an elite left tackle, the best at his position in college football, will be playing. So that's big news for them on what's, a veteran offensive line. Thomas Remack at left guard as well. They have some good pieces. Brandon Yates, a solid center. So that's important in this game. Thing about WVUs, they've just not been very good. They were, single point underdogs in games against Penn State, Iowa State, Kansas State, and after the WVU game, I was like, I don't believe in this team. Got blown out against Kansas State at home. Didn't look good at all against Iowa State. They had like a garbage time touchdown to make that one closer. They beat a bad Arizona team by a couple of points on the road. The game against Cincinnati the next week was pretty impressive. They beat UCF, and then the season finale they got blown out against Texas Tech. Nick, this team just doesn't seem to have much life, even though they have pretty good talent. I feel like in the bowl game, though, they might play a little bit closer now. There's some new juice with a different lead man.
I think there certainly could be some more juice for this West Virginia team. This is a matchup that's very intriguing between this offense and this defense. And when you look at the team comparisons in a second, we'll compare that matchup here. I think this is an offense that, playing their full offensive line will certainly help having Green go out there and all of the talent at wide receiver and running back. If these guys play up to potential, I think West Virginia can certainly keep this game very competitive. Will they be able to do that, though? That's certainly a question mark you got to look at.
Now you move to the final thoughts, those team comparisons and the Frisco Bowl prediction. Memphis, I think they had a clear edge at most of these spots. Maybe WVU with their 1-2 punch will get the edge over Anderson. I'm not going to pick it, though. Offensive line even. Maybe you could slide with the Nears because they have an elite left tackle. Both groups are collectively good, though. D-line, I think, is a little bit better for WVU compared to a linebacking group that is levels above the Mountaineers. And then both secondaries are honestly equally as bad, even though Memphis, they are able to create a little bit more with their 10 takeaway or their 10 interceptions this year compared to only a couple for West Virginia. You look at games Memphis has lost this year, Nick, where they struggled. That was against Navy, gave up 56 points, got smoked on the ground, and then UTSA, the game was a shootout early, and then they couldn't really generate much in the second half, and their secondary was getting flamed in that one as well. This is kind of a similar style of offense to what's occurred in those two losses, Nick, where they just couldn't keep up, and this defense couldn't get stops, that either being on the ground or through the air, tale of two different tapes and two losses. WVU, they don't have a Navy rushing attack by any means, but they can certainly hurt you with a three-headed monster that they have, and I think that's the biggest concern. I think ultimately this line should probably be more than 3, and I think it's up to about 4.5 now. 40-32 victory for me. I think Memphis, they have too many veterans, too good of an offense to not take advantage of the mismatches here. But again, the things I just alluded to with their defense, that's something WVU can easily take advantage of, Nick, but they got to get some stops.
This is an interesting matchup. Maybe I'm overthinking it picking West Virginia. Maybe I'm taking the interim coach bounce, wanting to give your veteran, play caller an opportunity. Guys that have been head coach, his first career head coaching game. Want to give him a win. Maybe I'm relying too much on a lot of the team returning for West Virginia, despite being in the transfer portal. Maybe I'm, looking into this a little too much. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I feel like bowl season is really crazy and things tend to happen. And sometimes these sort of upsets go on. This is a good Memphis team. No disrespect to them at all, but I think West Virginia has a really good rushing attack, and we saw that they struggled against Navy. That is, Memphis struggled against Navy, and I think West Virginia can replicate some of that success. I think Green and Donaldson can have a really good day on the ground. Certainly Memphis makes a lot of sense. I'm sure a lot of people will pick Memphis, but I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to take WVU. I think the new coach balance and sort of that energy around the program. Maybe they want to go out and give Scott one win in his career, have a little fun. The whole team's going to play together, try to end the season on a high note, and beat a top 25 team would be a really good way to wrap up the season. Memphis, on the other hand, I feel like they're not as motivated for this game. They did beat Tulane. That seemed like maybe that was their big game. They knocked Tulane out of playoff contention, and then that was that after the rivalry week win. That is, I think West Virginia has a good offensive line. That's a really strong unit. I think the rushing attack's really good, and they can have a good day here. I'm going to take the Nears in a bit of a high-scoring affair, similar to what you said, a high-scoring affair. I just have a good feeling about this team. I can't really explain it. I'm going to roll the dice a little bit here and go with Mountaineers.
Yeah, I think Memphis is definitely motivated, especially since their quarterback's from the area. He's going to go out there and put on a hard-fought show, especially since a lot of these guys have played so many years together, other than Anderson, who's a new addition. So I think this will be a good game, though. Second game of bowl season, Nick. It's already a tough one to pick. I'm going to go with a little more confidence points than most, about 26 on this one for the Tigers. This will be it for today's episode. As always, Nick, appreciate you joining me. This will be a fun game to get bowl season going. A little bit of a late start time from Frisco, but we'll be up watching it.
Yeah, certainly we'll put some lower confidence points on WVU. I'm definitely going to be in the more single digits range, but I think it's a good game to watch on Tuesday night. Not a whole lot going on at 9 o'clock Eastern on a Tuesday. Tune into this one. The Frisco Bowl has always been a bit crazy. Some interesting matchups have shown up there in previous years. Certainly worth checking out if you're a college football fan. Two interesting teams with some interesting storylines.
Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.